Hello and welcome to this COMP3218 game design and development video from the University of Southampton. My name is Tom Blount. I am one of the lecturers on the course and I am joined today by...
Hi, I'm Luca. I'm one of the demonstrators on the course.
So in this video we're going to be taking a look through yet more of our students' second set of courseworks. If you've been watching this far, you probably know the drill by now, but Luca, could you tell us what we asked the students to do for this coursework?
Yeah, just in case. So for the second coursework, we asked the students to create a game prototype with a story. So we want to see the game world interacting with the narrative and vice versa, as well as richness of choices. And this is based off of one of three of Aesop's fables.
Brilliant. All right, let's jump into the first one of our games. All right, and our next game is Cozy Little Town. So we've got, again, nice little title screen, nice little music. We've got some special thanks on the front. That's kind of nice. Again, always good to show your contributions and attribute anyone that contributed to your game. I recognise this music. It's a good set of what's the word? Royalty-free music. Radio FM. After the weather forecast, we'll continue with local news. There isn't much to report today. Everything is calm. And now, some piano. We've also got some nice little ambient radio sounds in the background as well, which is kind of nice.
A little bit of world building before we even get to see the world.
My name is Grant. I am a police officer. At least
Hello,
on
Grant.
paper. I spent over half a year preparing for this badge. Exams, physical tests, background checks, and so on. Not a single one missed. I finally made it into a big city precinct. And then, because of a work-related failure, no one ever explained it clearly, they said there were procedural issues that it reflected poorly, that my position needed to be adjusted. So I was transferred here, a place you can barely find on the map. South Gloucestershire. It's one prettiest village of the year. Ooh, I don't know how many years running. The signal is unstable, the streets are empty. The police station is smaller than a convenience store. I think it's more like being set aside, but maybe that's fine. At least here, nothing major should go wrong. Foreshadowing is a literary
Foreshadowing,
device.
indeed.
Okay, so a nice little introductory cutscene. Here's Grant. My residence is on my left side. Now, is that his left side or our left side?
Yeah, I would presume his left side, but
I would
we'll see.
presume our left side. Time to check in at the police station. The letter said I was supposed to report as soon as I arrived. WASD to move. Police station is straight ahead. I'll deal with the rest once I'm inside. Okay, we've got to head to the police station. Can we? Ooh. Okay, I think this is our house.
Okay. Yeah, this looks
Ooh, Grant
quite
is a
houseular.
speedy person. He's also giant. Look how big he is.
He just TARDIS his way into the car and the houses. They're bigger on the inside.
Ooh, okay, we've got a person. It's
Okay.
slightly different quality of assets, sort of being used together, but mostly they
I think
match.
that might be like an anti-aliasing setting.
Yeah, weather like this makes me sleepy. Good. Carry
Thank
on
you,
about your
resident.
day, citizen. Police station. You can tell it's the police station because it's blue. Fresh off the grill. Take your time. Okay, again, sort of nice little bits of flavour text here and there. Here's the police station. Start with a coffee, and then let's go and speak to you.
The chief.
You must be Officer Grant. Welcome to town. Thank you, sir. Reporting for duty. Looked over your file. Clean record. Coming from the city. Okay, so again, we've got quite a lot of text taking us into the game. Whenever you're expositing stuff, particularly if you're talking about something dramatic and interesting that happened and mysterious, it's often good to not just tell the player, but show the player, or even better yet, let the player play through it. But let's start off with something simple. Earlier this morning, a grocery market owner reported several sheep missing overnight. Do grocery market owners usually have sheep? Do we have any concrete information? The owner has already filed a formal report. So far, there's no sign of human involvement based on the initial report. Sheep were last seen near the edge of the forest. I'm planning to I mean, I guess it's, rural policing.
I guess, yeah.
I'm going to try and make I'm gonna try not to make every comment I make about this a Hot Fuzz reference, but it really is tempting. Understood. I will handle it right now. Forest is just outside of town. There are 2 patrol cars in the parking lot. We'll head out from there. Behave well.
All right, we have our quest. Let's go grant it up.
Forest. Shoot.
Oh, okay.
That's an enormous sheep.
Yeah, that it is. And
Secondly,
oh my.
Okay, we're not shooting the sheep. I see.
We're shooting the wolves.
Ooh, okay.
Those are some durable wolves. Okay, got them.
Okay, so a little bit of, what's the word? Built-in tutorials, sort of drip feeding our important controls as and when we need them. That bit is good. It's always nice to see people doing that.
You can see the large collection of dead sheep, so we're probably only saving the one.
But also some mysterious symbols written on the rocks.
Yeah.
Are they wolf prints, or are they? Is there more?
I
to
would
this
assume
case
that is
meets
the human involvement.
Pow, pow, pow. But this is not exactly the sort of gameplay I was expecting from the way they set this up. But we've got a little bit of action, a little bit of drama.
Yeah.
We're also level 1 apparently, which makes me think: is there an XP system? Okay, so we're going to wander around this field and we're going to try and find all of the wolves. They are persistent, aren't they?
They are.
Okay.
At this point, are we doing more ecological damage by killing the wolves?
I was going to say,
than letting the sheep die.
I don't know where this is supposed to be set, but I don't know if there are that many wolves to go around. Oh, I think we got bit a little bit there because our health has gone down. Oh, inspect the scene.
Inspect the scene.
Investigate. Blood still fresh. This didn't happen long ago. Hold on, there's something else here. These markings, they're too deliberate to be random. Almost like somebody wanted them to be noticed.
Ooh.
Sheep didn't wander off. This was done on purpose.
Dun, dun, dun. That's good. That's nice.
Doke. Chief, over here. There's blood on the ground. Seems like wolves fighting over a carcass. You think this is normal. Out here, things often look worse than they actually are. The chief is in on it! We'll file the report, reassure the owner, and move on. Let's express doubt. The wounds, the blood, even the markings, this doesn't look like random wolves. Let's not jump to conclusions. We'll handle it properly. Yeah, let's instead jump to the conclusion that everything is fine. Okie doke. Nope, they've all gone. Everything is cleaned up.
He just cleaned up. Fresh off the grill.
Oh no, this is not home. This is police. So we've got quite a big town. I'm curious if those residents are going to come into play later, or if they are just a little bit of set dressing. Over the next few, oh wow, that's quite a time skip. Over the next few weeks, the chief continued assigning him routine tasks. Patrols, reports, standard checks, nothing that could be called a major case. I've gotten used to how dull it is. I wonder if my former colleagues remember me. Back to work. Dun, 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 dun. At least our commute's nice and short. Hello, Chief. Your text is looking delightfully blue this morning. How are you today? Any new tasks? Church needs an extra hand. The back garden needs some cleaning.
Very police-sealer job.
Simple community tasks. Well, that's... once it's done, that'll be all. No rush. Got it. The church is over at the backside of town. Out of the police station tours. Blah, 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 blah.
Aha.
Is that it? Or is it somewhere over here? Oh, no, church.
Oh, there's the church. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So that was a bit sudden.
priests. Whoa, okay.
I don't know what these things are, but they are shooting
Creatures
lasers.
and bats.
I don't know what these things are, but I will respond in the way that I've responded to everything so far, and immediately open fire. Ooh. What are these things supposed to be? Okay, so we'll talk about this in a little bit more depth probably very soon, but as far as information design goes, it would be nice to know if I am doing damage to these things, either with, like a visible health bar, or like if they're flashing red or something like that.
Are you getting a sound effect there? Because just for context, I'm not hearing the same audio.
Not when we hit them. They're making a noise when they shoot, I'm making a noise when I shoot, but I don't think there is any audio feedback on that either. So
Okay.
I think... Oh yeah, there is a little bit of audio feedback when I get hit though, which is quite good. That way we can sort of panic a little bit. And my health does seem to
You get
go
most of the important things having an associated sound effect, but it could have been extended a little further to give the game a bit more oomph.
Yeah, let's... Pow, pow, pow. You can probably hear me clicking incredibly rapidly. And oh god, another wave spawned in.
Goodness.
That's quite a lot. Let's keep going. I'm a little bit worried I'm not going to be able to get through this level. Hopefully, with every bat I slay, it gets a little bit easier. I still don't know what these things are. They're a bit terrifying. Ooh.
Something that I kind of
Another
thought
wave?
about in the first sheep mission, but I was like, oh, that might not be too relevant if it's kind of tutorializing it, is that these little gameplay sections seem to not have any choice in the way that you can play them out. There is the one goal of kill all the enemies while surviving.
With a financial reason in place, a lot of things do become easier to explain. Like what? Let's go check the bookshelves. Okay. Interesting.
So, are we producing a mysterious illegal plant and selling it?
So that choice is the rest of the church. How do I get out of here, though? So I had three options there. One talking about the finances, one sort of just saying, supposedly. So I wonder, would that have given us a different path? It doesn't really feel like we had much of a choice there, there wasn't a lot to say, if you make one of these three choices, you're going to be doing something different. Ooh, we're doing some investigation.
Ooh.
Okey-doke. No cause for concern. Just keep investigating. Okay, again, quite a lot of reading. Okay, let's keep reading, I guess. Okie doke, nice.
Official seal.
Oh, so there was one thing that we hadn't finished reading there, I think, but I don't know what it. Return home. Okay,
I wonder if that makes a difference. Is there now some context?
Now
we have.
He believes the chief was a partner he could trust. The fact that you have to spell that out makes me think that it is not the case. Several weeks later, the town's routine is interrupted by an emergency report. Let's go to the police station.
We never sleep, Officer Grant. We just get into our home, we stand there. Ooh, we've got the same blood pattern.
Yeah, got symbols everywhere. Residents don't seem fussed by this at all. Although the dialogue seemed to change a little bit. I guess they've got
a little randomization.
Yeah.
Keeps things a little fresh.
Be nice if they said, like different things each day, but something's happened at the school. We just received a report. Someone's attempting to harm students. No time to hesitate. Head left. If this is just a sudden incident, stopping it as quickly as possible is the best outcome. Okay, so this is headed left.
I'm already worrying that we're going to get the same mini game again.
Oh,
Oh, we are.
okay,
Goodness.
these guys have got guns. Again, slight mismatch in terms of sprites. So a little bit, inconsistent there. But look, we can at least tell what they are. Can't really tell if I'm damaging them, but I can only assume that I must be.
With the amount of HP we have, and the progressive scaling between the wolves and the bats and the third unknown creature, these guys might just be a bit tankier.
I'm just
But then
slightly
again,
worried
how do
that
we
there's gonna
know?
be another wave.
I've also noticed they've got slightly different bullets to you, which is a nice touch.
Do they? I did not notice that. Alright, let's go back to the school. And we'll see what we can see. Alright, so this feels like it's going to be a bit of a tricky level to pass. I'm going to focus on not getting hit rather than aiming, I guess, and just sort of run around a lot. And oh, no, that's already gone terribly. Oh, I've got... Oh,
Ah,
I've got...
second gun.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just noticed in the top left it said Q. And it turns out I've got a bunch of different types of gun, which I don't think was tutorialized to us, but it's come in handy. Although I don't know if they're actually any better. I guess the spread's nice, it means I don't have to worry too much about aiming.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of a shorter range associated with them, I think, but not so short that it's problematic.
Oh, no, still dead though. Let's give it another try.
So, do we want to start talking about the mark scheme? Because I think that we've seen the meat and potatoes of what the game's core loot looks like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think let's start diving into that.
So, in terms of presentation, the graphics, audio, and information design, we've got a few different sprite packs being used. I think we commented that they are just a little incongruent sometimes, but they're all very effective in so much as we know what's being communicated in the world.
Aha, we got them. Yes, you're right. There's maybe some little inconsistencies, but overall they are pretty effective. And in fact, if we look at workable, it says workable, effective, but some inconsistencies. If we include the fact that they've got some nice bits of audio here and there, maybe even between a satisfactory and a good, it feels like.
Yeah. How's their information design as well?
Well, the
We've
fact
got
that
the
I only
nice
just
pop-up
noticed I could change guns is a little bit of a shame. But overall, you're right. It's mostly clear what is supposed to be what. Like our health is nice and clear. We already talked about how the enemy's health maybe could be made a bit clearer, so that we get a sense of how much how much damage each of the guns do, or how much progress we're making, and so on.
Yeah.
Good work. Following procedure and finishing the job matters more than anything. As long as I keep doing what he says, that should be enough. That's right. Always do whatever the chief says. We don't have much time.
Find us compliance.
Head to the upper right corner of the town. It is time to face the truth. So, from some of these dialogue lines, I'm getting the sense that some of these things, it feels like I'm supposed to be drawing connections between all of these different things, and right now I'm kind of not. Go to the
Other than
entrance
the obvious of the police chief is probably evil.
You've probably read some of the records already. The files have been disturbed again, but the records just said nothing ever happens in this town, right? Some things need to be repaired regularly. Okay, the department and the church are secretly working together. Sacrifice things to the god. Now we need to make a choice. Cooperate and complete the ritual, or refuse and resist. Let's refuse and resist. Dun dun dun. So that feels like kind of the first major choice we've been given.
Into the forbidden place.
Which I don't know where
Is
that
this...
is. Oh, okay.
Ah, okay, there it is. Yeah, that could have been signposted a little better. Oh my.
Oh. Oh no, we are being awakened prematurely by the disrupted ritual. Its power has yet to fully recover. To escape, kill the police officers and the god. Ooh, okay.
You know, I'll tell you what. This is definitely some ascending pacing that I was not quite expecting it to take a turn like this.
We've
But,
definitely raised
yeah.
the stakes, haven't we?
We definitely have. Okay, so I know you're going to be focusing on the gameplay itself, but let's have a little look at the mechanics, controls, and bugs. So you've got the clear separation between the overworld of talking to the NPCs and navigating around the screen, and then in between you've got the gunplay. And though I can't speak on the controls, you've got a few different things here that make the gunplay interesting between the choice of different guns, different enemy patterns, and projectile types. It is a little bit simplistic. It could have a little bit more in there that sort of changes in between levels from the perspective of the player. We do have some player leveling up, though I don't know how much that actually changed for us.
Yeah, I don't know if that was
Also,
just...
you've reached the end.
I don't know if that's just we're on, we are level 3 or we're just on level 3 now. You face the darkness in the town, defeat the evil god, hard path, sacrifice had to be made. The donkey represents stubbornness and endurance. We reached this end because we never gave up. Okay.
Nice.
Ooh, they've handed in a very interesting narrative structure. It is all hand-drawn. So I'm just having a quick skim through while we look at that. There's a lot of variables and other such that are not super explained. So we've got stubbornness and something else. Trust, I assume. Anyway, let's keep going and we'll go for another playthrough. You can tell, you can see what I was saying earlier about a lot of text because we have to skip through quite a lot before we can get to the game. But okay, so gameplay wise, yeah, where were we? You're right, it is a little bit simple. It's here's an arena, here's some baddies. There is some variation between them, as you say. The final one is kind of nice because there's a couple of different things at play as well. But and we've got the couple of different weapons, but for the most part, it is relatively simple. Controls wise, it mostly feels okay. There's certainly our we occasionally get caught on little things like that, and we do the movement does feel a little bit too fast for the scale. It's a little bit hard to control in places, but again, for the most part, it works perfectly fine. It is certainly playable. It might even be bordering towards engaging. So I feel again, it feels like between a satisfactory and a good.
Yeah, and we haven't really encountered game-breaking bugs so much.
Yeah. I guess I was going to say, I guess we'll talk about this in a second, but no, we'll probably talk about this right now. So story engine. So how does the game impact the story? So this bit, we'll take a look at their game notes to see what they... Ooh, interesting. We'll take a look at what they said as well, but from the surface, I can't really see anything... we're not making much choices in that gameplay, as you rightly said. It's just a case of shoot all of the things. So I guess there's the choice of which gun we're using, but that doesn't seem to be tracked in any way.
They've said the permission value will increase based on the player's performance on shooter gameplay. The fewer mistakes a player makes during the level, the more the police station will recognize their performance. Brackets, clear the level with 70+% HP remaining will get you 2 points, or clear the level without without reviving to gain 1 point, otherwise no points.
Okay.
When the permission level is sufficiently high, this will reveal more clues in the dialogue. players can also gain access to deeper narrative information at the research stage in Chapter 2. The limited archives which the player choose to research will alter the value of trust and suspicion, which will affect the narrative paths. So that's interesting. We've got something of a hidden system of stats here, where we've got the permission, the trust, and the suspicion.
Okay, so what I will jump in to quickly say there then that there's definitely an engine under the scenes. I would say agency might be a bit of a problem if we can't tell that we're making these important choices, then we are effectively not making any choices. The fact that so as far as story engine goes, gameplay to story, there is definitely an impact on the gameplay into the narrative that we see, but it's not a choice that we're making. It's effectively a test of our reactions and stuff, and that's fine.
It's a skill check.
But it does mean that, if one of your players isn't as good at your game, you are punishing them with a worse story. It's not to do with the way that they're playing this game and the story then adapting to what they've done. Like, do we immediately get out of the police car and start blasting, or do we try and do something else to solve this problem, or something like that, or even something like which weapon do we prioritize? So that is a bit of it's an impact. It's maybe not the best way of doing it though. But there is definitely, certainly they say there is. We haven't seen it happen yet, but I guess we can have a look. Should I investigate?
So another thing from the document that might give us some more context is they've described what the three main stats do. So trust, the higher the value, the more favorable the attitude towards the police station. Suspicion, the higher the suspicion value, the more favorable the attitude towards the player's inner justice. And permission, the higher the permission level, players gain access to deeper narrative information. In actual gameplay, whilst the two branches share a broadly similar experience, the narrative leads to players forming entirely different perspectives and objectives on these events. Nevertheless, both paths achieve the same end goal. Ensuring players must remain no bias towards both sides, thereby balancing the gaming experience.
Okay, so already forgotten.
So trust and suspicion levels, depending on how much you've leveled either of those, it affects the NPC dialogue. That's one way in which they've said that the narrative affects the game world. If a certain condition of value of trust and suspicion, in a certain condition of value and words, in certain condition of value of trust and suspicion, the scene, elements, and details of the town may change slightly, which also implied the narrative paths. For example, in Chapter 3, if trust is greater than or equal to suspicion, cult elements will be added to the town, which implies the player trusts the police officers and may assist some of the cases with them during the skipped timeline.
Okay. The thing is, though, trust and suspicion seem to purely happen, within the dialogue choices. So that's really story impacting story rather than gameplay impacting story.
Yeah.
So I see what they're saying, but let me just go over here and we'll have a chat with this person. So as far as gameplay impacting story, there is definitely an impact. There's this. I've already forgotten what it was. Permission. I don't know why being good at shooting impacts how much the cult trusts you, but okay, that's definitely an impact. Feels like that's maybe between a pass and a satisfactory.
They do have one more here. Of the moral choices players make throughout the narrative shape their sense of identity within the game world, to keep inner justice or to maintain the status quo probably. If trust or suspicion value is sufficiently high, it will affect the ending selection that the player cannot choose under other endings.
Okay.
As it stands, that's another thing where it affects the story again, not the gameplay.
Again, yeah, that's, as you say, story affecting story, because effectively the chief says, do you want to join us or not? And then we click
Yeah.
not, rather than, if there was something within the gameplay that allowed us to make that choice of, do we secretly have to go and steal those files, for example, as evidence, and then the chief catches us, and that progresses the story in that way, or something like that. Whereas if it's just a dialogue choice, that's effectively the story impacting it, so it's the story impacting the end of the story. I would also say, I mean, they say, we're making moral choices throughout this. I'm not sure we are. There's one big choice at the end, which is, join us or die. But a lot of the other choices that have trust and suspicion values attached to them are things like just asking for more details before you go out on a case.
Yeah.
Which, again, we'll get to this when we talk about agency in particular, but it's not really giving us enough information that is something that's going to have such a big impact later on. And in fact, so this choice, for example, doesn't give us enough information about what any of these things do to know how is this going to raise trust? Is this going to lower trust? Is it going to raise suspicion? And so on, so on, so on.
Yeah, as markers, we can go and look at the marks, or not the mark scheme, rather, the game design document, and say, oh, look, this gives us a +8 to suspicion and a -8 to permission, or something like that. But in the game world, as the player, we don't really get any sort of feedback as to what stats we've changed with any one of our decisions, or what really the stats even are.
We have to read 3 of these records, I've noticed, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I'm trying to do like a low suspicion run this time, and I was going to say, well, I'm sure there are records, but who cares, I'm going straight to bed. But we have to look at 3 of them. So one quick thing before we move on to story to game world to story. So for example, we mentioned earlier that the NPCs all kind of just say the same thing every day, whereas if they were tracking, they're already tracking the player's health at the end of these encounters. It could be something as simple as changing an NPC's dialogue from, like, oh my gosh, you absolutely slaughtered all of those wolves, well done, to, oh my god, you look like you were almost slaughtered by those wolves, are you okay? And things like that. Just little things that change the overall narrative based on what the player has done within the gameplay. Story to game, it feels
before we move on to story to game, did we want to get a final mark for this one?
So I was thinking sort of between a pass and a satisfactory. What are your thoughts there?
I'd agree, yeah. I'd say that it's not quite the case that a few sparse or minor examples of where the game world impacts the story. It's a little bit more than that, but I don't know if it brings it all the way up.
And honestly, story to game, kind of similar for more or less the same reasons. I was going to say the only impact that I can see is that, we get new guns, presumably if the other cops trust us as we go on. I don't actually know if that's the case. We might just get those anyway, in which case the story isn't affecting the gameplay at all, other than I guess we're progressing as we, just the sort of natural progressing through the game. It doesn't seem to mention it that I can see in their game notes.
So, the thing that I struggle with is clearly there's like stuff going on in the background every time we make a decision in the game, but what actually is happening is so unclear from the player's perspective. What the consequences of your decisions, I should say.
So this is a really good example of that, actually. So if we read the Certificate of Commendation, our trust goes up by 28. If we read the appreciation letter, it goes up by 28. And if we read the inquiry, it goes up by 16, and trust and suspicion goes up by 16. And the association one, again, 16, 16. But if, as the options are just presented as which of these reports do you want to read, we have absolutely no idea of knowing, what they are and why that would affect our trust and suspicion. So, I mean, on the one hand, it makes sense, right? If you're doing an investigation, you don't know what option you're picking. You're just pulling files out and reading them. And then when you read it, yeah, maybe you're more suspicious or not. But the problem is when we get to agency, it's the player feels like they aren't in control of what's happening. Before we get onto agent, I keep slipping into agency before we finished the previous bit. So story to game world. Again, if we say that the only thing that's impacting the gameplay is just sort of natural progression through the game, it feels like that's maybe between a pour and a pass, maybe sort of at a pass. I can see what they're saying, and they do have a decent network of branches and things like that, but it's not actually impacting the gameplay.
No.
Well, actually, no, hang on. Wait, that's not true. There's one very obvious one right at the end, which is if we side with the chief or not. So let's mill through this, and we'll just see, because presumably we don't have a big final boss fight with a horrible alien god at the end if we're on the horrible alien god side. There is definitely an impact there, so it's not below a pass.
And then they've got when you've done the mechanical elements of the game very well, and you've got a high enough permission, you get more clues in the dialogue.
But the thing is, that's still story impacting story.
Yeah.
Because that, like, in a way, like, ideally you shouldn't have this like clear separation between story and gameplay, right? The way they've set it up is you go and do some sort of story investigation, and then you have a combat sequence. Ideally, you'd want those to be sort of intertwined a little bit more. However, it does make our job of marking the story engine a little bit easier, so that bit is good. But yeah, as they have separated it in this way, it does mean that our the gameplay is not changing based on those story elements.
Yeah.
Go face the truth.
So for richness of choices.
Well, hang on, we haven't finished the other one.
Sorry.
I'm still.
We haven't finished the other one. No, we're going too far.
But,
for story to game world, my bad.
I wanna. I'm clicking through this slowly so I don't accidentally make a choice. Okay,
yeah,
so again, this is story impacting story still, because of the dialogue choices we picked earlier. We don't have the option to pick this dialogue here. So that is an interesting way of managing agency. Again, yeah. I've got questions about it because the player's not as in control of it as maybe they realise, as the developers intend. But okay, so what happens if we cooperate? Ritual is already prepared. Presence has awakened. It's not worshipped. It is relied upon. The entity takes a bite of what? Oh, eats an.
Oh my.
Oh. Okay. So we still have the boss fight against the alien god, even though we're on its side. But now we don't have to kill it. So there is still an impact. It's not particularly a big impact. There is this one choice at the end that changes the gameplay slightly. So again, that feels kind of like it's out of It's quite loud. So now the cops are helping us because we trust them.
Which does change things, yeah.
It's not a huge impact, but it is an impact. Okay, so now enough beating around the bush, let's talk about agency. So, they do have quite a few different sort of branching choices and things like that. There's no doubt about that. There are a lot of different paths through this, and they've got some interesting attempts to manage agency where if your trust value is too high, it effectively locks off some of your choices. The main thing is, do we think these are interesting choices? And to an extent, I don't think they are. because, so for example, you're digging through the reports. You don't know what you're going to find, and you don't actually know whether it's impacted your suspicion or not. It's always a really tricky thing about measuring a player's suspicion, because you don't know how suspicious the player is. All you can do is model it for the character.
Yeah.
Whereas if, for example, you had said, objective, go to bed. Optional objective, break into the police station to find evidence. Then A, you've got a very good idea of how suspicious the player is if the player is now breaking into the police station. And B, that's putting the choice much more on the player. They're sitting there and going, oh, should I break into the police station? What should I do? How should I solve this? Rather than just, okay, I'm going to read 3 files at random and see what they say.
Yeah.
So, overall, it feels like, unfortunately, like looking at their fairly sprawling story plan, it still feels kind of like it's at a pass, because we have some choices, but only a few are interesting. And the really interesting choice is the one at the end, which is knowing everything that you know. Should you side with the cops, or should you go against the horrible cult?
I think I'd agree with that. It leaves some possibility on the table, but it does have a few interesting choices in there. Well, a significantly interesting choice.
Okay. Pacing. So, pacing.
This I think it does better on.
Pacing, I definitely think it does. As you said, we sure have an upping of stakes by the time we get to the end. So we go from investigating some missing sheep to strange goings on at the church to preventing a school shooting to fighting an elder god. Like, if that's not ascendant pacing, I don't know what is. And it's kind of matched within the mechanics as well of, not just are the enemies getting scarier, but we're getting more firepower as well. So that kind of makes a nice, what's the word? A partner for the narrative tension.
Yeah, I'd say right off the bat, it has a clear final peak.
Absolutely.
So that would put it at the good, at least.
Yeah, I don't know whether it quite hits the excellent, but I think it definitely hits a good there.
Yeah.
Some of the pacing is maybe a little bit flatter. So, for example, like we've already said, like there's quite a lot of just clicking through words a lot of the time, particularly at the introduction where you really want to hook your audience. But yeah, ascendant pacing, clear final peak. That sounds pretty good to me. What about storytelling techniques?
I know we commented on their use of foreshadowing specifically.
Yep, there's definitely that.
We've got a few in-game changes as well, with the like blood splatter being applied to all of the houses when we get back from seeing it on the rocks with the sheep.
Yep, a little bit of environmental storytelling. So we've got the initial cutscene. We've got dialogue within the game, like within the town. Be nice if the dialogue from the residents was a little bit more, told a bit more story through that as well. But and then we also have, like you say, the environmental storytelling of the town changing, cultist marks appearing everywhere, and so on. So
yeah,
again, it feels like a good, right? Successful use of more than one game writing technique.
Absolutely. To push it to an excellent, it would need the mechanics supporting the theme as well.
And the mechanics of play, I would say, don't really support the theme of, trust and mystery, because the mechanics of play are destruction oriented. They're blast away the bad guys and then have a conversation. So again, if they wanted it to be all about suspicion and trust, if they'd gone for a more, like deductive reasoning kind of game where it's all about piecing together the clues for the mystery, like a real sort of detective kind of game.
Social puzzling.
Exactly. Then that would feed a lot more into the theme they're trying to convey. But again, as it is, solidly hits a good. So, last but by no means least, feedback.
Feedback.
So, I'm going to rotate their PDF so I can read it again. Feedback and response. Blah, blah, blah. Most of their feedback was related to the branching plot choices. At first, they had a variety of different endings. Thus, the final design concluded with both outcomes defeating the boss behind the scene. Though each achieved its objective, the cost is different. So one entailed the death of more citizens, one resulted in the loss of more police officers. Okay. That doesn't really highlight what they've changed or what feedback they were given. Number 2, regarding to the takeaway agencies in the story engine, should ensure 100% of the gameplay. Permission may influence certain research options and narrative details, but does not guarantee an ending. Guarantee 100% gameplay while preserve. Again, they're not really. I feel like they've not quite articulated what they were told and then specifically what they did about it.
Yeah.
Players may choose to enter any ending unless they extremely add trust suspicion value in their selections. Moreover, entering different endings with slightly elevated trust suspicion takes. Okay, so they mentioned you've got some different monologues as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so overall, unfortunately, because of some of the things we've already talked about, and because they haven't hugely articulated what they were told and what they did about it, they're kind of just saying our game does this, but they don't really explain why it does that. It feels like. Well, the problem is
it's a little hard. Yeah.
It's like it. Honestly, it feels like it might actually be between an absent and a poor, because they haven't told us what the feedback was or what they've done. Like, they've told us how the game is, but they haven't told us what changes that they have made to make it that way. Which is a little bit of a shame. But I think that's what it has to be.
That's understandable.
But okay, overall, a nice foundational piece of game. It feels like, that there's a lot that they could build on from here, and it feels like with a few tweaks they could, add a few more levels, add some more sort of narrative structure around the outside as well, and I think that'd be really, really fun. All right, let's move on to our next game. All right, and our next game is Temptation. For this one, I'm joined by Dave. Dave, do you want to say hello?
Hi everyone. Yep, I'm also one of the lecturers on the course.
Brilliant. All right, let's jump into this one. So we are playing this one in the editor, because we did notice some bugs in the build, but we've seen it in the expo, so we know it does definitely work. After a long trip, you finally arrive at the entrance to the dungeon of the demon Azeroth. You are determined to slay the demon, if not for those it has killed, then for the treasure it is said to hoard.
An exciting group of people gathered behind us.
Left-click the eye in the top left at any time to see a list of controls. So, they've remembered from coursework 1 that they need a tutorial, and this is it's something.
It's simple, but at least it's there.
WSD to move, E to talk, left-click to advance text. I don't know why, why not just E to advance text as well? Then I don't have to.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a big group of people. Ooh. This is not the way to the dungeon. Oh, interesting. I can't. A big empty room, but I can't go back this way. A little bit of managed agency.
Yeah, so obviously you want you to go through that door, I guess.
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk to these people first. Hello and welcome to the party. Let me introduce you. I am Sir Elric, loyal knight to the king. It was my duty to arrange this quest. The dwarf here is Durham, the fiercest and most aggressive warrior. The man in the green shirt is Aurelia. Okay, so we're getting a little...
Yep.
What's the word? A little introductory bio for each of our party members.
I'll be giving you a test at the end.
Yeah, it would maybe be nice if, if they introduced themselves, that would be kind of nice. A bit more characterization. And B, if we had a little portrait of whoever was talking, so we knew which was which.
Yeah.
But okay. Let's go down this corridor. Ooh, door opens. Very nice. Oh, we kind of just about fit through it. Oh no! A horrible monster!
Click on the eye to remember what to do.
Okie doke, so we've got...
Oh, wow. Okay.
Here's our party at the bottom. Here are 2 slimes and 2 more me's. So if I click the eye does not help with this bit.
No, it doesn't
So
help.
we've got strategy,
So presumably
magic.
are those the...
Ooh. Okay, so we've got doppelgangers, slimes, and another doppelganger at the end. That's
okay.
I like doppelgangers as an enemy. That's kind of
Yeah, saves a lot on coding.
it does.
Hero attacks doppelganger. So we've got magic items, strategy.
So we dealt 95 damage. Okay, so Elric attacks.
Have we got anything saying how much health the enemies have?
No, I thought I was doing great for dealing 95 damage, and then Sir Elric comes and does like 205 or whatever that was.
Do we know how much health we have?
No.
Okay.
Maybe if I click strategy. So right now I'm just clicking through while everyone else does their thing.
Yeah.
I feel like normally in JRPGs you control your party as well, right?
You do, don't you? Yeah.
We earned $8.
$8 from the slime. Must have had it in his back pocket.
Be careful, there might be more. Oh, there is more.
Okay, another fight.
What do you think strategy does? So I got through that entire fight by clicking fight once, and then everyone else took care of it for me.
So, presumably it's a strategy how you get to tell them what to do?
So if I tell... Okay, so I want you to attack... Wow, okay, this is a lot more in-depth than I originally thought. So we can say, I want you to attack based on HP percentage, relative to the player. I want you to attack the thing with the highest... That's kind of neat. I really like that. I don't know if the rest of the combat is... Oh, hang on. Let's just say any. Oh, and now I seem to be... Okay, that's a bit of a shame.
What's that? You stuck?
I might be stuck now. Let's skip this one combat. I like that they have a panic button for just if something's gone wrong, skip it.
Press this button. Yeah. It feels almost too in-depth, doesn't it, that system?
It does a little bit.
You know?
I'm just going to... That's a lot of combat.
That's a lot of enemies.
And now I'm just going to keep mashing the mouse button.
Did you see what was under magic or item before?
I didn't. I don't think we have any items yet. I think we do get some later. I don't think we have any magic yet either. But hang on, let me just... I don't know if you can hear me furiously clicking in the background.
Desperately trying to get through this. It feels like they've written quite a sophisticated combat.
It does.
Simulation on the back end of this. But what they haven't done is exposed it in the interface particularly well. So you can't see who's attacking who. You can't see who's got what health. You can't see who's got mana, who hasn't. Who's got what items and who hasn't. And I wonder whether rather than building up all of that invisible complexity, whether they would have been a bit better spent creating a simpler combat system but making it visible and apparent.
I am worried that checking if I could use an item has meant I can't fight now, unfortunately.
Okay.
I might have to skip this one as well.
Skip combat, yeah. Do you think the skip combat is there for us? As Let's Plays? As a Let's Play aid? Because it's a strange thing to put in otherwise, right?
I suspect it is just there as a kind of debug thing. This is interesting because I'm pretty sure this icon sprite was working in the build. I think that's our money.
Yeah.
So again, very, very detailed shop, right? Like if we mouse over stuff, we get a nice tooltip. The tooltip's cool. Information design. We'll get onto this in a minute, but that's kind of nice, right?
Okay. It is kind of nice, but what damage do we do now? What damage do our other people do? Are we buying stuff for us or for others?
Who needs a bow? Who needs a...
Yeah, who uses a bow?
Elemental amulet.
Yeah.
And
I've got no idea what we've got already. I feel like we're very blind.
I also think it's possible that this shop is randomly generated, because I think in the build I saw, I could buy literal grass. And the description was, heals you a small amount. What did you expect? It's literally grass. Which tickled me. I thought that was quite good.
Yeah.
Alright, let's buy some stuff. Let's buy a heal. Let's buy a ring. Let's buy heal you. Let's buy this, let's buy this, let's buy this. Oh, can't afford that. And then buy some cheese. And a couple of fish. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okie doke. So here we are in the next room of the dungeon. It is a little bit Spartan. Like it's a big, big empty room.
Very spread out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can presumably go and talk to them again, say hello.
Yeah, I feel like, either they could have made the room a bit more interesting, or they could have just made it smaller. There's no reason for it to be this big.
No.
Hello. We've got some sound effects as well when they're typing the text. That's kind of nice. It looks like this is the last room of floor 2, and those doors lead upstairs to floor 3. Use stats or leave. View stats. Okay. So we can view...
okay. So he has no add items. So you can give him some of the stuff you...
I can give him a weapon. If I click on add items, I can give him some consumables. We
okay.
can also see... Here we can see his health and mana and defense and damage and crit chance.
Yeah.
Over here. This dwarf is under the delusion that his axe is somehow better than my bow. Okay, so we do get some voice lines from... Or some dialogue
little bit of characterization.
Maybe be nice if we had like a little dialogue choice as well, so we could say, which one of them we thought, do we like elves or dwarves better, or like a little bit of extra flavor. I'm too great and smart to use a weapon with a range under 10 meters. Again, we can view the stats about dwarf. Like you said, it's nice that they are eventually exposing this information. I don't know how much of it I'm going to retain the next time we're in a fight.
Yeah.
It
feels like when you're doing maths and you shouldn't do stuff to significant figures which are inappropriate, right? Or when you're reporting an experiment or something. It feels like what's going on here. It feels like the stats and things are at a level of detail that is irrelevant to us.
I think for a small prototype like this, they could have streamlined it a bit. If they were going for, fully fledged JRPG style thing. But yeah, sure, a lot of these numbers and stats, like balancing them and managing them is part of the fun of the game. So I'm not going to complain that they've overcomplicated the combat system a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, weird looking slime around the door.
There we go through this door. Oh, pentagram. So.
Oh. Okay, nice little, I don't know if you'd call it a cutscene, or like an in-game event, right? Controls removed from me,
good.
Something fades in. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Uran.
Yeah.
Please excuse my ominous appearance. I'm only here to help. I trust you immediately, Uran. It's my understanding that you're on a quest to kill the demon Azeroth, who resides in this dungeon, and take its gold. I also want this, for my own reasons. Unfortunately, I can't fight Azeroth directly, but I can enhance your power. The only problem is that my powers work on blood magic. That seems perfectly trustworthy. The only way I can increase your power is if you sacrifice somebody else first.
Seems entirely reasonable.
So, lure a companion onto the pentagram, kill them, boost our own thing. Sure. Who's your least favourite companion, Dave?
Well, I don't know really. What about... Should we get rid of...
Let's get this guy's standing close.
The guy with the tash. Yeah, go on.
Could you come and help me in this corridor, please?
Oh, that's so trusting.
Yeah, just stand right there on that big target painted on the floor.
Yeah.
What was it you wanted help with? Just hold still. Stay right there for a second.
Oh.
Ooh.
Things are happening.
I like that we can see the Unity debug as this is going on, and it just says sacrificing. Thank you. You'll find the item in your
item as promised.
Okay.
So if you where's your inventory? Did something happen? No, nothing.
Ooh. I wonder what the consequences of this choice are. Do you reckon this is false agency, or do you think it matters?
It looks like false agency to me, but let's find out.
Oh well, I guess it happens. If I press I, no. I think the only way I can
talk
see
to one of them. Yeah.
Wait, is... Oh, okay. I think these sprites are not loading properly, but I think this is our... So what do you think the item we got was?
Yeah.
Because we definitely had cheese and fish. We definitely had both of these.
When I played this in the expo, I don't think that worked. I think it's supposed to give me an item and it didn't.
I think you're quite right.
And I think the same thing has happened here.
What's the difference
So
between defense? Do we want defense or health? What, like how? Oh, we've got 100 health, 100 mana, 10 defense, 10 damage, 3 crit chance. So 20 health doesn't sound like a big increase, but 20 defense or 10 defense doubles
our defense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sword. You might notice that I'm not distributing all of this loot to my companions. Don't think too hard about that. It's fine. Okay. Ooh, shiny slime. So I'm gonna stick with the usual tactic of attacking them. Whoa, 530 damage. I don't know if that was a crit, but that was a lot more damage than I did before. This is a good sword.
Okay.
Right, while we're plowing through this, should we start talking about...
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So let's talk about the presentation. So that's effectively the graphics, audio, information design. Graphics seem perfectly fine to me. I kind of...
Yeah.
There's... I wouldn't say that they were particularly appealing, but they work.
No, like I would agree. The actual sprites and assets that they've used together are quite nice. Like, maybe like a more interesting background here would have been good, and maybe not having a giant empty room being the focus of the main bit of the game. But as far as the combination of assets they've used and the way they've pulled them together, I think it works pretty well.
What about the audio?
Audio is very nice. We've got a lovely sort of crunchy 8-bit tune in the background. I don't know if we've got any sound effects. I guess we do have some, like when the text is appearing. But I can't hear any for any like of these attacks or anything like that. But yeah, it's fine. Nice little looping sort of chip tune goes well with the sort of pixel art.
The information design. There's a lot of stuff to tell you, and they don't tell you much of it, I would say.
Well, I would say they do tell you all of it, just maybe not in all the right places.
Yes, that's probably fairer. I think particularly in here, the kind of core information you want to know is how much health everybody has, what's an attack, what damage is an attack going to do. And it does feel like it's, like I said it before, it's overcomplicated at the back end, not enough exposed at the front end.
I think I agree.
So I would say that it's not terrible, but it's definitely could do with some work. So I mean, a satisfactory for presentation would be workable, effective, but some inconsistencies. Good would be professional, complete, and effective.
How much do you think the difficulties with the information design impact this? Because to me, like, setting the information design aside, I would say this is probably at the good level.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, we could always say between satisfactory and good, and just say it's sort of because of the information design just knocks it down. I normally you can get away with the information design, but actually it's quite important for this fighting section, and this is one of the core bits of the game, right?
Well. So here's the thing, and we're about to talk about this in a moment. It's actually not that important, right? All I've pressed fight and attack, and everything else just kind of happens.
Because you can skip. Well, yes.
Just the balance of the combat is off, and given that they've gone to such length to make this really intricate system, the fact that I don't have to interact with any of it is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
There we go. There's my little grass.
Okay, well, let's talk about meaningful play and where that sits. So that's the mechanics, the controls, and the bugs.
We've got some sound effects when we buy stuff as well. That's kind of neat.
What's it like to play?
So it's difficult because Well, it's not difficult. It is perfectly playable. Like, the game is fine. Most of the buttons work. There are definitely some bugs, probably I would say major bugs, as far as bits of the combat system not working, and if you click things out of order, having to force skip. Although I am very glad they put in the control to let us force skip rather than making us have to, crash out and start again. But the main problem is just it's unbalanced to the point where I'm not playing, I'm just clicking continue.
Yeah. You're making your one choice and then everyone else plays the game for you, basically.
Yeah.
Like I said, it feels like they've fallen in love with the combat simulation.
And it's easily done, right? It's a thing a lot of designers
it's really
do.
interesting. I'm pretty sure that the very first thing I coded when I was a kid growing up was essentially a combat simulation, because I used to play a lot of tabletop RPGs. Used to be quite interested in CRPGs, so it was like, building a combat simulator. That sounds like fun, right? And it's fun to build, but just not fun to play unless you are very careful in the way you balance it and the way that you give people informed choices. So, I mean, Satisfactory would be playable. Simple game with fewer mechanics, usable controls, may have some minor bugs. In this case, it doesn't feel about. It's not the fewer mechanics, but the simplicity of the gameplay.
Yes.
That would cause it to be there. And a pass would be challenging. Simple game with few mechanics and awkward controls. Feels probably a little bit better than the pass level. Would you rate it between them, or does it hit the Satisfactory for you?
If it wasn't for the bugs, I think it would hit the Satisfactory. In fact, honestly, if it wasn't for the bugs, with the whole strategy side of things and being able to assign different things to different people, I think it might even be higher than Satisfactory if they tweaked the balance a little bit. As it is with the bugs and with the fact that we can kind of sidestep interacting with the gameplay, because the balance is so off, we just keep clicking and then we proceed. I think it's closer to being between a pass and a Satisfactory.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Same with the items in the inventory, right? We never have to use them, so it's a shame that they put in all of that work to make a store and a whole item allocation and management system. Like, here's the thing: the mechanics they've implemented, they could easily be up at the excellent, high complexity, complementary mechanics, but the balancing of it just means that none of it actually matters as far as the play goes.
No, doesn't come into it.
Game mode to story.
So this takes us on to the story engine. We obviously haven't had a full pass through yet.
No, although I think I can see where it's going.
Yes. So the two directions here, game world to story.
Hang on a minute.
So how much do your actions in the game world impact the story?
I have noticed another substantial bug.
Oh, go on.
Because story to game world, there's a really obvious thing, right? We're feeding party members to this horrible monster. Have you noticed what I've just noticed? They're still here. They're still here. That's a shame. So again, I don't know whether we file that under bugs or a problem with the story engine. I'm inclined to be generous and file it under bugs and then treat that as still having an impact.
Yeah. I think so. I think so, because that's obviously the intention. So
game to story, though, is a little bit more problematic. There's not much we do within the game section that impacts the story as far as I can tell. It's
Let's do the easy one first. So story to game world, basically the argument is you make a decision in the story space about whether or not to sacrifice your team members. You then do a diegetic choice about which team member you're gonna sacrifice, and then that has a game world impact because they disappear from your party, and in theory you should lose them from the fight. So I think that's quite a nice little loop of having that relationship. I mean, a satisfactory would be some examples of where it impacts the game world. It's definitely got that. To be good, it would be a number of examples of where the story impacts the game world in important ways. And I think it probably hits that as well, right? I think kind of which members of your party you have left, particularly since they have, different things that they're bringing to each fight. That's an important impact.
Yeah,
So I would say,
do you hoard all the good items? Do you if you know you're going to sacrifice anyone? I guess you have to go through the busy work because it's not a surprise. You just go through the busy work of taking off their good items, giving it to somebody else. But
yes,
yeah, I think that's a very effective interaction between story and game.
Yeah, so I think that works well. I wouldn't necessarily push it up to say that it was a constant interplay between story, but it's definitely there. So story to game world, but as you were beginning to say, game world to story.
So, but before we move on from story to game world, this bit is a bit of a shame because now we're at the penultimate law. Trustworthy monster up there basically just says, now go and stab everyone else. And they had a perfect opportunity to put us into combat with each of our party members rather than just run up and click on stab.
Yes.
I have this. You've just watched me stab some, and again, some of these dialogue bits would maybe be nice if they changed a little bit.
Well, this is a good example, right, of a game world to story, because the dialogue isn't changing based on the fact that you just killed the person next to them. Can you? Has there been anywhere where your actions in the game world affect the story?
I don't know. So I was just going to have a look through their game notes and see if there's anything that they mentioned. There's
a little bit of diegetic choice, which you might argue if you're being generous. So in terms of what they say in their game notes, they said we aim for a fulfillment of certain objectives to alter the betrayal offers that you get. So the more enemies you destroy, the more desperate the big bad would become. We also consider an extension of other types of objectives. Unfortunately, we're unable to implement these. Characters permanently die if out of health at the end of a floor. This results in a game world impacting the narrative in ways that otherwise would only be impacted by the elements of the narrative. So if you're the only member of your party left alive, the boss picks you off without you being able to defeat them. We originally aimed for the player to get a better ending for the more party members that survive but unable to implement it. We also set an extension for different dialogue as morale is reduced with the party trusting you less and less, but unfortunately we're unable to implement it. So it sounds like they knew. Imagine it's a really intense boss fight. Okay.
Why isn't there a really intense boss fight? You have a combat engine. Just put the boss there. And give him infinity health.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? It's a weird thing to do. I mean, you'd think it would be like a 10-minute job to just stack him up with some massive stats and give him some minions and off you go. So what their game notes basically say is that they knew what the game world to story things could be or perhaps should be, and they just ran out of time to do it. The only one it sounds like they've got here is if you're the only member of your party left alive, the boss then picks you off. Right. So I think there's a minimal one, but otherwise they just run out of time to do it.
Well, hang on. Let's very quickly see what. Oh, hang on. A little bit of managed agency.
Yeah.
So if we pass here, I think we still can go here.
Yeah.
But it tells us, are you sure you want to go ahead without talking to people? So that's actually a nice touch. But you're right. They've listed a bunch of things that would be very clear game world to story, and they just unfortunately ran out of time. So on the one hand, nice that they're aware of it, and unfortunately sometimes you do just have to drop bits that you're not going to have time to finish. Where does that leave us in terms of marks?
Well, it depends. If we assume that one, if you're the only member of your party left alive, the boss picks you off, which is actually going to be quite hard to test, because I think it's going to be quite hard to kill your party. Right?
Yes. In fact, I would go so far as to say impossible, because I don't think there's any way for me to...
You can't tell them not to attack, right? So, but even if you assumed that, right, I think you'd be saying, I mean, a pass is a few sparse and minor examples, and I think that's one minor example, so I don't think it would even reach a pass.
Yeah, I think it's probably hits below there as a result.
A poor would be some support for story elements in the game, but the game world has no real impact on the story. I think
It feels like that's pretty much it, isn't it?
It's got to be there, right? Okay, so that takes us on to agency, which is all about the number of choices you get and the richness of those choices.
So for agency, I think that really they've got one choice repeated several times, but it is a pretty rich choice. Do you sacrifice a party member for your own gain? That's a classic moral dilemma.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say if there's a flaw to that, it's that it's quite an extreme choice, right?
Sure.
But it is definitely the case that if you were looking at it kind of mechanically, you might say it's an apples and orange choice. Do you want a powerful item or do you want a party member, right? So
this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Narratively, it's a fairly interesting choice. Mechanically, it's undercut by the lack of balance in the combat system because there's no reason one way or the other.
Yeah. The other problem is that there's very little characterization of the characters.
Yes.
So I think that encourages you to think of it as a mechanical choice. Do I want an extra character fighting alongside me, or would I rather have a magic potion or whatever it is the item should be, right?
It's one of the reasons I was saying it'd be nice if you had a little bit of interaction with them. So right now you get a dialogue line from each of them, which is fine, but it'd be nice if they, asked your opinion on something, or you could ask their opinion on something. And like you say, then you could characterize them a bit more, where you could have, if all of them are really nice to you and one of them's horrible, then I bet I know who you're going to sacrifice, if anyone.
And that makes the sacrifice choice less binary, right? Because although each choice is individually binary, ultimately it's like 4 or 5 different choices. So if you can change it so that sometimes you choose to and sometimes you choose not to, that's more interesting, and it makes you genuinely pause. And that's exactly how you do it. You'd set up one member of the party so they were thoroughly obnoxious, so they're an easy choice to get knocked off. And then you might think, well, maybe I can have, I've got my dwarf and my elf that are squabbling, and maybe they've both got reasons for hating the other one, and I might decide to side with one of them and get rid of the other one, right?
Or even, you've got 2 that get on really well, and if you sacrifice one of them, the other becomes more enraged or more ineffective or something like that. There's a whole bunch of mechanical things you could tie to it as well.
Or says something that makes you think that maybe if you got rid of one of them, they'd leave, right? Or do something silly, or kind of, so you'd actually end up losing 2. So I think there's so much more they could have done.
But all of that said, I think what they've done is still pretty good, right? There's it is an interesting choice. There's more they could have done with it. And it does suffer from the same kind of binary moral choice system that a lot of AAA games suffer from as well, which is you might as well just ask this question once at the start and then always do that. There is never any reason to flip-flop between them.
Yeah. Are you evil or not, basically?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, a satisfactory would be a number of interesting choices, right? And I think they've hit that.
Yeah, and a good would be ways of managing player agency, and I think they've hit that. Like we even said, there are a couple of points where you get a dialogue or something that say, oh no, you should go and talk to your party before continuing, or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think they have that network of interesting choices yet, but
no. So that still means it's at a good level. They've done a good job. So that takes us on to the techniques, which is pacing and the actual story techniques, how they tell the story. Pacing, what do you think?
So pacing, I mean, there's ascendant pacing as we go deeper into the dungeon and we start picking off more of our party members. The stakes are going up. Mechanically, it's maybe not reflected because I don't want to harp on it to death, but the combat system is ignorable. So if fights were getting tougher, it would be...
And that bug, right? Because we should be losing members of the party.
Well, yes.
So we're not really experiencing it as it was designed. But yes, I think you've got ascending pacing mechanically, and you also have ascending pacing narratively because you're falling more and more into darkness as you sacrifice more and more people, right?
And then it comes to a crashing halt with imagine there was a cool ending here, which is a real shame.
I mean, it got a laugh out of us. But
I did find it quite funny. But then, after a moment's reflection.
Well, I think that what's a shame here is this is obviously a group that knows what they need to do, right? So it's not like they didn't know there should be a big boss fight there, right? It's just they ran out of time to do it. And I think what both of us were a little bit incredulous about was, could you really not just put a fight there, given that you have an entire fight engine, you have an enemy sprite, all you need to do is... I mean, even if you just stuck the sprite in there...
In fact, it is the same sprite that they had for the final boss, I think. So even if just, if you pick the evil option, he shows up, turn 1, kills you, then you get the fade to black text. Or, if you haven't sacrificed all of your party members, you just have a fight and see...
Yes.
In fact, even if you've picked the evil option, maybe still give them a choice, but those cool items you got now no longer work because you're using them against their true master or something. I can sympathize with we ran out of time to put in all these cool things we wanted to.
Yeah.
But this was already in there. That's why I'm slightly surprised that they didn't go for it. So as it is, it feels like it hits a satisfactory because they've got ascendant pacing without that clear final pacing. Peak.
Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, so that takes us on to the techniques. So here we're looking at how they tell the story. So really that's done through the dialogue.
I think
there's also a little bit of kind of in-game cutscene going on with the...
A little. I don't think they use it to convey much in the way of story, but they do have a couple of things like... No?
Well, they kind of, he has the pentagram lights up and then he appears and...
Yeah,
so there's a certain amount of stuff. I know what you mean. To what extent is that just an animation within game rather than a cutscene?
Well, even so. So would you say that's successful use of more than one game rating technique?
I would say so. Satisfactory would be successful use of at least one, and I think they're kind of there. Well, yeah.
That's the thing. I think maybe they're between the two, right? They've got a little bit extra, but they don't fully.
Yeah, they haven't quite utilised it. Yeah, and even the dialogue, I would still say that it's been used successfully, but we've said a few times now, they needed to do more with it to really have an impact in the game. Okay, so that takes us on to their feedback, which is in their notes. So let me just find that. So they said their primary discussion was determining how destroying enemies impacts the narrative. So perhaps allies being defeated by enemies impacts the story. Allies only permanently die if you sacrifice them, though, so this might not be as significant an impact. After further discussion, we determined to change it so that allies would permanently die at the end of a floor unless they have been healed above 0 hit points since being defeated. Okay, so they wanted to have the characters dying in the fights and then that being a thing in the story. So, I mean, it makes it meaningful in terms of the game, but I don't think they've really impacted the story, though, have they?
Yeah. Part of the problem is, because we could arbitrarily sacrifice any of these characters as we're going, they can't have those characters be super integral to the story, because if we kill them, and then what happens?
Yes. Well, that's the whole managing agency bit, right? Where you get other characters taking those roles. Or they've got a second thing, which is the more enemies you destroy, the more desperate the big bad becomes.
Well, they said they wanted to do that, but they didn't have time to implement it.
Well, I was going to say, both of these things read, again, like things that they talked about and discussed doing but didn't do.
Yeah.
So I think what we have here is they've reported some feedback, but they've not actually implemented it.
Yeah, that seems to be...
So So absent is feedback was not reported, and it was. Poor is that feedback was not addressed, although some other positive changes have been made. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of where we are.
You are very blasé when you just say, "Oh yeah, he died. Don't worry about it." Yeah, I agree. So I think overall, like particularly like once they polish off some of the bugs, they've got a really in-depth combat system that they could very easily spin into a much larger game. They would need some balancing and things like that, but as with a lot of the other games we've seen, like it's a really solid core that they can continue to build off if they want to.
And I think their core decision, which was about literally sacrificing party members, works really well, and it matches this coursework well. Right? It's just a shame that the bugs are getting in the way of us seeing the full consequences of that. And I'm kind of intrigued as to what the item we'd have got would have been, and would it have made us genuinely think, oh, this is worth sacrificing our party members to get these amazing stuff, right? Again, really good foundation, and really clear from their game notes that they kind of knew where they were going, but just kind of ran out of time.
All right, let's move on to our next game.
And here we have We Three Kings.
Yeah. So
this is definitely the coolest of the splash screens that we've seen so far.
It is a very nice one. We've got crown, we've got frogs. I think I can guess what fable they've based this off of. Nicely stylized font even. Like it just adds a little bit of extra polish. Ooh, that was a loud frog. Greetings, Regent. You are here to serve as the Regent to our glorious king. With Majesty the log. The log with a crown. Whenever we have a request, we'll come to you for answers, for you are the mouthpiece of the great king. Let the king's voice speak through you and solve our woes for us. So we've got some stats, we've got some choices. Glory to King Log. It's that time of the year when love is sweeping the pond, perhaps we could make use of it. Do whatever we can to promote frog families. We want a high population. This is degeneracy that goes against traditional frog values. So I imagine every time we make a choice, it's going to affect one of our stats, or possibly more of our stats. This one, high population. I don't know if high population is good. So, part of this is going to be me pretending that I've never played Reigns, but equally, if you've ever played Reigns, this game looks quite similar. So I suspect that stat gets too high, bad. Stat gets too low, bad.
Stat gets too low. Yeah.
So we're gonna try and play it like that and see. I guess at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with drawing inspiration from good games. So that
definitely bumped up your pop.
But I think it also bumped up happiness. It maybe would have been nice if they'd have really highlighted. So again, they've kind of invited a lot of comparisons to Reigns by making the game so close to it. So, and one of the things Reigns does is when you mouse over a choice, it shows you what stats are going to be affected and by how much. Although it doesn't tell you whether they're going to be affected positively or negatively. It either just says, chaos is going to change by a lot or a little.
I see, yes.
Wow, this one species of reed seems to do wonders for frog skin. Shall we harvest it all? So we can either not. I imagine this is going to change the environment. Also,
fear being lower is green, which is the inverse for the environment.
Which makes sense, right? Low fear is probably good fear. A new commodity, yes. So happiness has gone up, environment has gone down. Let's see if we can tank environment and see if that affects things. Okay, foxes don't need frogs. We're going to want some frog guards.
Okay.
One of our frog guards mistakenly arrested a rabbit. That's a pretty tough frog if he can arrest a rabbit. To apologise, we should allow him to graze in the pond. Maybe it's best if we have this.
Seems that our environment stat has bottomed out.
It has a bit. Maybe that's why we need a new king. Can we really abide by this king? He's done nothing. We need to build a strong pond. And a strong pond requires a powerful leader. We want a new king. to deliver a paragon of frog values. Strong king or strong frogs?
Make pond great again?
No. Easygoing eel. You ever notice king eel smoking pondweed? Laws forbid it. Maybe it's time for a change. If the king smokes it, why can't we? That seems pretty fair. I have recently discovered
Frogman.
the lost tome of the ancient Frong wizard Beelzebufo. Am I permitted to try my hand? Yeah, sure. What could go wrong with this? Oh, environment went up. I don't know why environment went up, because we're now doing magic, but it did. Ever notice how the waters where the local trout live seem bluer than ours? Just me, who cares? They have something we want. In a fight, we'd surely win. So we need to manufacture some consent. I did hear that the trout are facilitating illegal pondweed smuggling. We just legalised pondweed though. So that doesn't necessarily tally up with... Scroll all the way back
Minor
here.
consistency issue.
Yeah. So it feels like maybe, some of these events should be based on, or probably are based on, previous events, but this one maybe doesn't. Well, then again, what dictatorships are ever internally consistent anyway? The trout are helping facilitate legal pondweed smuggling. Covert strike to cap. Oh boy, this was extremely topical when this was released.
Goodness.
Our main food source, the flies, seem to be dwindling. How will we get by? We can ration food, or there's lots of other delicious insects. There we go, tanking the environment to see what happens. Just bring up volume again, because that croaking, the frog croaking is going to get on my nerves, and probably the nerves of everyone else. Dragonflies have gone too far. They've taken our tadpoles hostage. Wait, why are we at war with the dragonflies? I thought we were at war with the trout. We've always been at war with trout. Tadpoles are already dead. We won't play their game. Chaos is going up. Fear is surprisingly not too high.
Yeah, we got a very happy frog population as well.
Algae growth is a myth made by the kingfishers to hold us frogs back. So environment's not going
Nice.
down. I think environment has properly completely bottomed out.
Yeah,
Which is
which
interesting.
doesn't trigger like an end state, which is cool.
Yeah, well, is it? So here's the thing. This is very close to being just a visual novel, and the thing that's making it a
Yes.
game is that we've got resources to balance. But if balancing those resources doesn't actually do anything, then is it a game?
Then yeah, what are we doing here? I presume it's a thing of, instead of some condition among the stats being reached triggering an end, it might be simply a set number of events happening, and then at the end you get your stats checked.
Yeah, I'm having a quick look at their story diagram. Fortunately, unfortunately, firstly, it's a beautiful diagram. I like what they've done with it. Unfortunately, because it feels like a lot of these cards or events are procedurally generated, or at least procedurally selected, it's kind of difficult to pull out what is the important thread. So they just have a line in their diagram, for example, just saying answer requests, and another one saying side stories, but I don't know which one's a side story and which one's the critical path through this story. They do say they've got a number of different endings, though. So
They
either
do.
all frogs die, few frogs flee, or many frogs flee. So
Or if you ever
probably-
let the population run out,
So I
you
imagine
get a game over.
Yeah, I imagine that's what our stats are going to influence. But hey, if our environment is as bad as it possibly be, that means it can't possibly get any worse. There we go. Make the pond great again. Now we've got a heron. This is fine.
Final king.
Frog magic, the whisperings. The spells have worked wonders. Perhaps it is time I explore the deeper depths of this book. What could go wrong? Ooh, an extra bit of sound there. Haven't you noticed how vulnerable young tadpoles are these days? We need strict surveillance at all times. At all times. Would somebody please think of the tadpoles?
Ha!
The Frog Pond Safety Act.
Okay. We've increased our fear a good amount.
Is that good? That's probably good, right? If we want to keep population high, we should invest in the young. Let's build a nursery. More frogs would only cause chaos. We need order. The forest is burning. Yes. Everyone into the water. We'll let the surface fire rage. The fire rage and surface when it's safe. King Heron, why are you looking at me like that? King Heron? King Heron! The king just ate one of his subjects. That frog died of natural causes.
That's a lot of fear.
King Heron continues to feast on our subjects. How could Jupiter forsake us so? We asked for this.
We asked for this.
Tragedy has struck. We've lost a good frog to a bird attack. We sure have, buddy, we sure have. Spread strong anti-bird sentiment through the pond. Any bird is a threat, including the king, do you think? King Heron continues to feast on our subjects. I see Frog Lorens on the other side. So, interesting kind of managed agency there. We don't have a choice because of our previous choices. Frog Team 6 ran into some trouble with their covert operation. That was a little while ago. We've got bigger problems now. Their cover was blown and they're cornered. Kick up a mighty there we go. Oh, created chaos. King Heron continues.
We asked for this.
So do we just... Heron's ate my face. I do like the references in this. Are we just going to keep getting this event over and over and over again until we hit population 0? Is there anything that we maybe could have done to stop this?
Yeah, here it is.
Because we're still getting other events.
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go. We boosted our population a little bit. Because it... So looking at their storyline, it does look like there's a way to, either all frogs die or there's a way for frogs to flee. But it doesn't look like we can prevent any of this happening. We must flee.
One tiny detail that I've noticed that I quite enjoy is as our population increases and decreases, the number of little 3D spinning frogs in the pond environment goes up and down.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. That's kind of neat. Alright, back to menu.
The pond is decimated.
So this is interesting, because for a game that's nothing but choices, it doesn't hugely feel like there's a lot of choices in the outcome of the story. And maybe that's an intentional critique on the ideas of inevitability. I tell you what, well, we've seen one playthrough. I will keep playing some more as we go. But let's start chatting about the mark scheme.
So, in terms of presentation, graphics, audio, and information design, I think that this game graphically is very nice. We don't see all that many different camera perspectives, but the one perspective that we do see is very beautifully done. You've got the 3D models with a little bit of movement around with the frog spinning to keep it interesting. You've got the lush pond. Another thing that I've noticed about the pond is it's blue now, whereas when we had our previous run where our environment was completely messed up, it was kind of like a sickly brown. So we've got some good interactivity there.
Yeah, that's very nice. In fact, we'll talk about that again later. I mean, for a game that could just have been nothing but text and not really been materially different, it is nice that they have gone to the trouble of adding, a nice scene that changes over the course of some of these choices.
I'd be immediately sort of interested in giving this an excellent for the presentation.
Well, let's not rush into things. What about information design?
Yeah, so we do get a little bit of information design in terms of the beginning of the game, the introduction of the events on the right side. Do you want to add to that?
Well, so I'm trying to think, what are the types of information we've got? Obviously, the stats and the choices, and this probably ties into agency a bit as well. But the consequences of those choices. So
yeah,
I don't mind that they don't spell out, this choice will make environment go up, this choice will make happiness go down. But it would be nice if it showed those if it reflected those outcomes afterwards. So, for example, if I click this, we have to very quickly look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different progress bars to figure out what changed.
True.
So it'd be nice if either they all went up or down, slowly and with a bit more flourish, or if it just, after you clicked it, it paused for a second and then said, environment plus plus chaos minus or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of being a bit nitpicky. Mostly, I do agree with you. I think it is really good. I think maybe between a good and an excellent. I think, given that the core mechanic is balancing these resources, a bit more information design exposing how those resources have changed would be good.
Yeah. How's the audio side of things as well? Because that's not something I can hear.
So we've got a lot of frogs croaking, a lot. I think we've got some background music as well. I've had to dip the volume quite a bit, partly so we can hear each other, and partly so we don't drive all of our YouTube viewers completely mad. But yeah, so the audio-wise, it is quite nice as well. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time, and that never works well. So yeah, I think between a good and an excellent for presentation. Meaningful play. This is a tricky one for me because they are walking a tightrope between of it being a interactive narrative rather than a game. And don't get me wrong, I love interactive narratives, but as part of the brief of the coursework, there needs to be some gameplay. I think they are on the correct side of this. But the fact that we can effectively just, in fact, as I'm talking, I'm going to just do this, just to sort of prove a point. The fact that I can just sort of slam my way through this and not a lot changes or happens until we get to the end means that it feels like there's less mechanical stakes, at least, in actually balancing any of these things. And even story-wise, we'll get into this when we talk about agency again. The fact that really we kind of end up with the same kind of ending regardless of what we've chosen is a bit of a shame, although I feel like we've got some nice branches of, depending on what we pick in one event, that changes the outcome of the story, so that's kind of nice. Oh, there we go. There we go. So we did get a different ending with me just spamming, spam clicking that. And ooh, what a gruesome epilogue as well. So yeah, overall, I think I think it counts as a game. Even though it is definitely on the simpler side of game, right? Mechanically there is not a lot going on. We've got 2 options and they'll make some stats change, and that's fine. But then there's limited consequences for letting them go all one way or all the other. So I would say,
somewhere around a pass, maybe a half better.
I don't think it's there. I think it's probably still hits the satisfactory. It is a simpler game, with fewer mechanics, but I mean, partly that is intentional of what they have tried to. I mean, again, I don't want to keep saying, well, they've just done Reigns, but they have just done Reigns, and Reigns is definitely a game. But the reason Reigns is a game is because you can die halfway through. So it feels like it's still kind of simpler in that sense. It's playable, but they could have done more to make it engaging. So I still think it hits satisfactory.
Just 1 or 2 things that reach a condition more so than just when the population runs out.
Yeah. Wait.
So, how about the story engine?
Again, so this is a nice example of where the gameplay, such as it is, and the story are very tightly integrated, but it does make this bit a bit tricky for us. So, game world to story. So, I guess this one's kind of easy because it's just we're balancing these stats. Balancing these stats is the game. So, what effect do these stats have on the narrative? So do they mention that in their game notes?
Let's have a little look. So, they've got 2 paragraphs to their story engine. I'm just going to skim them instead of reading them fully aloud.
So while you're skimming that, one thing I will highlight is a thing you've already mentioned, in fact, which is the visuals of the pond, which is definitely part of the storytelling, changes
Yes.
based on these. So environment's low, it's all murky, population's high, we've got a lot of frogs. That's kind of nice. I
That's
like
what
that.
it is. The happiness affects the rate at which they hop and ribbit.
Oh yeah, okay. So again, affecting the animations and things like that. Does it change the events that they draw from, though?
No. I don't think so.
So the events aren't actually impacted by the gameplay, which is a bit of a shame.
Ah, they said expressly, if it was not out of scope, we would have liked to have other stats influence endings too. So yeah, it was largely a thing of the context of making a game prototype that led to population being the primary ending driving stat.
Okay, but they do also say some requests are more or less likely to appear depending on the state of their of these stats, and
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe that it seems to track. So as far as that goes, gameplay to story, where
A good example.
so we've got the the sort of the fluff, if you like, the environmental storytelling, the set dressing changing, and we also have some of the content of the story changing. Ending wise, yeah, it'd be nice if there was more to it than just the heron eats everyone at the end, but there's definitely a number of examples where the game impacts the story. Would you say they're important ways? I mean, the event, again, it kind of goes back to the gameplay of the...
Yeah.
I mean, the events that you're getting are important to the story because they are the only story that you're getting, so the fact that it sort of branches before the final ending is still important.
I would say so. I'd say yes with a mild asterisk of the impact is limited by the fact that the game world is not huge. It is mainly just the story.
Yeah, and I think it's that asterisk that actually stops it being an excellent. If they had more integration between those stats and, for example, the outcomes and the endings, then I think it would probably be up at an excellent.
So, game world to story, somewhere between good and excellent?
I think good still. I think it's a larger asterisk than that, but yeah, I still think firmly at a good. What about story to game world? This one's trickier.
Yeah.
Because where do you draw the line between? Well, I'm making a story choice because it's part of a a dialogue or an event, but it's also a gameplay choice.
So, another thing that they mentioned here in the story engine is the use of a flag system. So, answering a certain message in a certain way might add a flag to the system that will allow for unique follow-up messages leading into branching narrative paths. These messages do not necessarily occur back-to-back. These choices also influence your ending options. Furthermore, these side stories often have the greatest impacts on your game statistics. So, yeah. This is again something that I find a little bit of difficulty distinguishing between where the story and the game worlds exactly lie.
Okay, so if we were to pick an arbitrary example within this type of game of the story impacting the gameplay, it might be something like, for example, making a promise about one of these resources, saying, within the next term, I will bring happiness to X. So you've got your story that's then driving the player's gameplay forwards. I think that although they have a decent amount of game to story, it doesn't necessarily reflect back in the same way in quite those terms. Because again, it's difficult to say because the fact in this type of game, story and gameplay is almost inexorably linked. But the alternative is effectively saying, well, their game has no gameplay and therefore it's not a game. So if we try and sort of tease out what are the differences between it, we might say that that it sort of hits a satisfactory. There are some examples of the story impacting the game world because we've got these resources that we are trying to manage, and that is guiding the choices that we are making.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the richness of choices? We certainly have a lot of choices to make. The whole game is just making choices. As far as the branching goes, again, because they kind of seem to be procedurally drawn from a deck based on both your stats and flags of what choice you made previously, there's not really a... It's almost more of a network than it is a set of branches, which is good.
Yeah.
But how many of the choices are very interesting? Because they all tend to lead to the same place.
You get an interesting outcome as a summation of a bunch of smaller choices that each choice individually doesn't have a huge impact, but they do in aggregate. So it's hard to say.
I think there's I mean, what you've just described basically is the excellent criteria on the framework. And I'm kind of leaning towards that. There are some issues I have that we've sort of already talked about of the, it's not super obvious what consequences is each choice going to have on these stats, which partly is good because it partly prevents it from just being a straight up calculation of, well, I have to click this one because it's the one that makes the number go up, but it also muddies the agency just a little bit.
Yeah.
You're right that the individual choices by themselves aren't necessarily hugely interesting, but being able to sort of consistently make the same... So, thinking about it, one thing that I often complain about, like even with modern AAA games, is, if you've got a binary moral choice system and it's a case of do good thing or do bad thing, there's no point asking the player to do that multiple times across the course of a game. You might as well just ask them once at the start, and they're always going to pick the good option or always going to pick the bad option. This is kind of a nice style of game where actually asking them multiple times over the course makes sense, because you're not just juggling one value, you're juggling 5 values, and B, because as different events come up, you need a different interplay of resources and so on, so it makes sense to kind of have that continual input of agency. So even though each individual choice by itself isn't necessarily interesting, the choices as a whole are interesting.
Yeah. Because you can definitely, have the consequences of your early decisions influence what you choose as your later decisions. The Heron King butchered us.
I think this is the thing, right? If the thing that is stopping me from just saying, well, it's an excellent, of course it's an excellent, is because the player doesn't have a lot of control over the ending. There are 4 endings. 2 of them are just you run out of population, and the other 2 are you run away from the heron.
Yeah.
And it
so perhaps
I think that's
not quite at an excellent, but
yeah,
half a mark down.
My main problem is, and it's not super easy to tell this from the notes they've handed in, but my feeling as a player is that, again, all of these sort of myriad of individual choices building up to something are great, but the problem is, once that ending happens, it feels like they were all meaningless, because we've all been eaten by a heron and there was nothing I could have done.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think, again, because they've got the sort of network and it's got this sort of looping structure, and the individual choices go quite well together, I think that's where it fits. Moving on...
Before we get too stuck in the weeds, pacing.
Pacing. Well, we've kind of got the natural ascendant pacing of, as in the fable, we've got log to eel to heron. That kind of ups the stakes. The events definitely seem to get sort of more dramatic from, deploying Frog Team 6 or whatever to the Beelzefrog or whatever.
Yeah, I think we've got the clear final peak there as well, because with the heron kind of sentry rotating around, being threatening for a little while, and the progressive events in the game getting, I'd say, more desperate for the frog population.
I would say, as much as I've critiqued their choice of ending, I think the fact that you have, as soon as you get the heron, you get an event like every other event that is just heron's eaten somebody else. The heron's eaten somebody else. That is your clear final peak rate of things are as dramatic as they could possibly be at this point. I don't know if they kind of have more than one peak because they've kind of got like the micro stories within each thing, but the problem is, well, maybe it's just from the playthroughs that I've noticed, but they don't necessarily go hand in hand with the overall story. Like the fact that, you know, the apocalypse is upon us and the heron is eating everyone, and then we get a report saying, uh-oh, Frog Team 6 is in trouble, what should we do? And it's like, we have bigger problems at this point. So again, it's one of the downfalls of like a procedurally drawn story of there are always going to be weird consequences like that. So I think it firmly hits a good, not quite sure it hits an excellent.
Yeah.
Okie doke. Storytelling techniques. This one. Ooh.
Ooh.
So I was going to say, well, this one seems a bit more clear cut because they've only got the one technique. They've got they've got an event that gives you an idea of what's playing out. But they do also have the environmental storytelling.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Now I don't think that hugely communicates the story, but it does go a bit towards it. So this feels like it might be...
it's like a secondary echoing of the stats that we can see. Because if it were just the stats, it would be mechanically the same game, but we get to see a window into the world and see how those stats actually affect the lives of the frogs within our, like, imagined society here.
Alright, so do you think that's between a satisfactory and a good, or do you think that is a good all by itself?
I'd put that at a good. Okay, so because it's successful use of one or more at a good, or fully successful use of at least one at satisfactory.
I think it's probably a good.
Yeah.
Okay, I tell you what, they've got 1 and 2 halves, if you like. If you count the little epilogue sort of vignette at the end of Heron piercing the frog regent and blood everywhere as a cutscene, then you've got like 1 and 2 halves. So feedback-wise, what did they say about their feedback?
So
alternate
they've got
endings.
it. Yes.
It's always interesting when they say something that we've talked about at length. 4 different possible endings. These include a game over, which I personally don't count as an alternative ending. That's just a game over. If time allowed it, we would like to include more ending options depending on the stats. Yeah, I think that really is what would have bumped it up substantially. But as it is, if they just had the one ending, I'd have been complaining about this a lot more. Even so, though, I don't think they have necessarily differentiated the endings enough. So they say they've got 4 endings, but 2 of those endings are everybody dies, and 2 of those endings are people run away.
Yeah, it's two like variations on 2 endings, and I think as well with that being their only piece of feedback that they've addressed, rather than there being multiple different things, that makes it difficult to give them a higher mark for the feedback specifically.
Yeah, I think this kind of hits a pass. Like the feedback's been addressed, but it's had limited success.
Looking back over all of these different marks, I feel like if we split graphics, audio, and information design more granularly, the audio and information design are at a good, maybe even like between a good and a satisfactory, but I really like the graphics of this game, and that might just be a personal preference.
It is nicely put together, I will grant you that. Okay.
Just, it's got a lot of flavor to it.
Alright, and on that note, let's move on. So, I think this is our last game for this batch. So, we will see you again soon for another installment. See you then.
Have a good one.